Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Lethem, and welcome to The Economy and You. We're back after a short hiatus to the mainland. I just wanted to say thank you to Jeff Davis, who's going to be our guest today, for coming on. I got a hold of him yesterday and asked him to come on to the show. And Jeff, thanks for being on board.
Hey, I'm always happy to help you out.
Coming on the show today.
When you don't have any other guests, Chris, call me anytime.
Okay, excellent. Well, one of the great things that when I called you the other day and I was talking with you, I said, there's a lot of really interesting issues right now, some of which you've been talking about on your radio show, which is on, 4 and 5?
Well, my show initially was 7 days a week, and after this last election, I had cut it back to 1 day a week. I'm on Fridays, 4 to 5 p.m. on 1080. So It's a 1 day a week. It's really a nice, great, I get to build up for it and I get all the great guests. Still got my fingers in it and keeping up to speed on everything going on here.
So that lets you sort of keep track of everything that went on the week and talk about it on Fridays, doesn't it? Yeah, that's great.
It does.
Well, I wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about a few issues that are sort of stewing in the pot here in Hawaii right now. One of them is this NextEra HECO merge that we've been talking about, or a buyout, I guess. It's more of a buyout. Now, this is a topic that's getting a lot of publicity, but you're the solar guy. So I wanted to get your take on all this sort of weird and wonderful going on here.
First of all, thanks to you. Thanks to ThinkTech for having me in.
Yes.
Because this is an education format. And there was a time when I've hosted this show and when ThinkTech was part of my radio world. And I think we have the same goals, and that's educate folks out there in the public, people who need an education. Well, what you read in the paper is going to help. I suggest that you all read the paper, including the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, daily, and keep up to speed what's happening in your world. But it does get spun. It does get a bit tiresome. So to condense it, NextEra, Hawaiian Electric sell, $4.3 billion sell to NextEra. You've read about it in the paper. You've heard some very, very strong things. One of the biggest surprises, we actually had our own governor, David Ige, come out against it in public.
Well, he came out against it, but do you feel like he had a salient reasoning behind his opposition?
He does, and I've met David on several occasions. He's been a guest on my show, etc., opponents in the election. And he's an electrical engineer, and I like that, very well grounded in some nuts and bolts issues about electricity, for instance. And David has taken the governor's taken a very hard step in saying our renewable goals, as you know, they've signed a proclamation to get to 100% renewable somewhere in mid-century.
Okay.
And if that's going to be taken seriously, your electric company, currently HEI here on all the islands except Kauai, which has a utility, publicly owned, which is where a lot of folks want to go with our system now, but we'll get to that. The point is, if that's going to be our goal, it's not going to fit with a utility whose goal is generating the energy as Hawaiian Electric does now with the leftover barrels of oil that come in.
Right.
Very volatile cost. We could be, right now we're winning on that.
Well, we're winning, but these types of events are generally short-lived.
Yeah.
Now, when we see this going on, now there is a with NextEra, what they have been talking about is switching from oil to LNG, liquid natural gas.
Yeah,
it's cheaper.
But the point being, there were 28 third-party entities that were interveners in this PUC docket. NextEra has done everything classic of a big corporate takeover. They've tried to shut every one of those out. They couldn't be done. 28 of them have now all come out against the NextEra deal. NextEra responded by basically throwing money and promises at it. Right now, in our local paper, they reported, what was it, a $20 million consultant fee. They're giving money to politicians left and right.
I don't mind them being crooked. What I'm upset about is the fact that I wasn't in on that. I didn't get a part of that.
You'll be in on that.
I didn't get a part of that $21 million.
You don't get an electric bill. You're not in on that.
Oh my God.
Yes. Bottom line is the governor stepped up, and many people have stepped up, organizations, et cetera, and said, we need a utility model that is designed to make their profits off of the distribution of energy. Whether it's coming from currently where HECO does burning oil, rooftop solar, wind farms, wave farms, whatever you can get spread around Their job is to coordinate it and in a smart way, get it to where it needs to be 24/7 with safety and reliability.
Right.
quote
So what you're
unquote.
saying, Jeff, is bifurcate generation from distribution.
That's
Separate
right.
those
And that's
as
not just
two
what I'm
separate business
saying.
models.
Obviously, greater minds than I, thank God, are saying that.
Okay.
And the governor made a big step up when he came out against the LNG transitional fuel. We'll talk about that.
Okay, let's
But
talk about
to
that.
come out and say NextEra is not our cup of tea. Generally, in this state of Hawaii, money talks, and that's all there is to it.
So-
But we saw two big changes recently. We
Okay.
saw an incumbent governor, Neil Abercrombie, lost
Yes.
to world record numbers, never before happened before, statewide, or rather nationally. And now we see the governor coming out and taking a reality stance and a hard political
So,
stance.
but
against
here, let me play devil's advocate with this, because I can see some advantages with NextEra. One, it's a large corporation. These kinds of distributed power systems, whether it's generation or distribution, is capital intensive. That means you have to borrow a lot of money. Our debt, Hawaiian Electric's debt, is rated at BBB, so it's just a little bit above junk bonds. Whereas NextEra has an A- rating, so they would have a lower cost of debt. Wouldn't that be a benefit? And then if they're able to do that, perhaps there would be some cost savings to that.
No, I don't think that it's all about a numbers game. I'm not saying you're suggesting specifically that, but you look at what NextEra's done in Florida. They've got 3,000 people with rooftop solar, with 4.5 million people, or however millions of people, like 20 million people, I forget.
Now I'm gonna okay.
3,000 people have rooftop solar. It's illegal to lease a solar. Not that I'm a fan of solar leasing
Right,
unless
yes.
it's for nonprofits. It's illegal to do that because somehow NextEra's got a thing where it's illegal to buy electricity from other people in Florida. NextEra is now
Well, that's called monopoly then.
NextEra, well, and it's a monopoly, but it's not surrounded by thousands of miles of water.
Right.
That's a political monopoly.
Yes.
That's money. They give in millions and millions to their politicians to get them elected and to get their legislation ran, get it the
Okay.
way they want it. They're currently at the Supreme Court suing their own. They're fighting it out between the citizens of Florida and NextEra on whether or not they should have been allowed to spend $500 million on fracking. You saw the front page of the New York Times yesterday, wastewater from fracking, water tables destroyed, methane in the water tables, on and on. Fracking, unfortunately, is not being done in a Pono way, unfortunately. It'd be nice to be able
And there is a right way to do fracking.
I would imagine there would, and I'm sure
mean,
it would
there are
cost
some
a lot
people
more
doing
money
it,
to
yes.
do it correctly, and
Yeah,
that's
well,
why they don't.
And that's unfortunate.
And so, again, they spent half a billion dollars on fracking, and when the people of Florida stood up and said, that's not us, they said, really? Well, that's us. We'll meet you at the Supreme Court right now. They're not a future. They are the old way of doing business where might is right, politicians are bought. Just take the simple fact. They've been able to reduce rooftop solar down to 3,000 roofs in a state that large. We've got 70,000 on a wall.
So here's my question to you, Jeff. And now I'm just looking at the economics of it. The economics of power generation in Florida is it costs around 10 cents per kilowatt hour. Here in Hawaii right now it costs around 33 cents per kilowatt an hour. Could it be that part of this problem is that it's not as cost effective in Florida?
How about this? Could it be that the root of this problem is that the HEI business model is a mirror of the Florida model? Purely profit driven for now, for me.
Okay.
Let's look at our geothermal. HEI never got into the tapping of our geothermal. They were making too much money burning oil. And those were at times when oil was less expensive.
That's
obviously.
always been a sort of an issue for me, because I look at geothermal as something that we should be exploiting.
Could have.
And the question is, why aren't we? Is it a cultural thing? Is it the Hawaiians
No, not so much.
organizations, or is it really because there's not as much money to be made?
Because there's no competition. HEI has a monopoly on every island except Kauai. They have no incentive to move the right direction if they're making profits in the wrong direction.
Can we bring energy that's generated from the neighbor islands, from the Big Island? Is
we
there a way to
had-
transfer that energy
Chris,
to Hawaii?
if we had begun
To
our
this island?
geothermal, if HEI had gotten into that 25, 30 years ago where they should have, like other parts of the world, there could have been many different ways to, whether it came in the form of now hydrogen, fertilizer for ammonia, whether there was a cable, or whether they took care of the Big Island's needs, for instance. Right now, they've waited so long making money off of oil, off of us, that other technologies are going so fast. I hate to say it, but There could be solar, hydrogen, or wind, wave technology that's going to surpass what geothermal would take right now, probably 10 to 12, 15 years to get the cables laid. By that time, our science is moving so fast, we could do it each island for themselves. So that's the way it's come up with. And that could be done with the right political will, and thanks to David Ega, we'll see what happens with that.
Okay.
The bottom line is we're going to be trading Peter for Paul if we go from an HEI to a NextEra, and the governor hit it right. Thank you, Mr. Ega, for saying we need to find a utility that works with us or model to get to 100% renewable as a distribution network, not making their money as a generation. In other words, NextEra is the greenest power company in America because they own major solar farms.
Okay.
As long as they own it, they're happy with it.
Right.
But if you look at what they've allowed the public to own in Florida, only
Right.
3,000 homes, they're obviously not a benefactor. They're not someone working towards a positive. They're a typical, you mentioned it, very large corporation with a bottom line of their shareholders' profits. That comes before the future generations.
No. Okay. So.
And then you mentioned 10 cents a kilowatt. Come on, they've got pipelines, they've got nuclear.
Yes.
They've got natural gas.
Yes.
All right. You want to talk about natural gas?
Well, I do want to actually touch on natural gas because there's, I've heard the argument that there's LNG, there's methane,
Liquid
which is in a
natural
liquid
gas,
form, which is a
methane.
methane form, and that these burn clean. And the reason I want to talk about this is because if we're going to eliminate this as an option, we should understand why.
Let's go there. So first of all, let's start where you started, burn clean.
Yes.
Well, take another look, backtrack to the wells themselves and see the methane escaping out of these wells. That is just taking away all the cleanness relative to oil or coal that these gases would burn. We're losing that from CO2 emissions by the fact that methane, which is a much, much stronger greenhouse gas than CO2, is just as they're not drilling the wells properly, they're not capping the wells properly. They go out there with thermal imaging and we just got plumes. There's a plume of methane right now sitting over the Midwest that's coming out of these wells day and night. So clean.
So what you're saying is that it's just sloppy workmanship.
We're losing
not
all the
doing-
gains going to
Yes.
cleaner quote fossil fuel by sloppy regulation over how it's taken out of the ground, extracted.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very bad. It's well known. Do what I do. Go online, get an education. That's what it's all about.
Really interesting.
Then let's look at this other idea, the fracking issue. So first of all, if you were going to get into LNG, unless you didn't care about water tables and about environment, you could buy whatever you wanted. But if you did care and you had to limit your gas export into non-fracked,
Right.
okay, now you've driven up your pricing. And although it is obviously much cheaper on the mainland where the wells exist,
Right.
we still have to get it to Hawaii.
Uh-huh.
And then the simple story to that is America hasn't built an LNG carrier for ever.
For a long time, right? Yes.
Probably ever because
Yes.
of the Jones Act.
Uh-huh.
The Jones Act stifles shipbuilding in America. You can go to Japan and Korea, first world nations,
Right.
and pay 1/5 the cost for brand new boats.
That's right.
So they would have to get an exemption in the Jones Act to allow somebody to build us an LNG carrier.
So
if
that
they
we
didn't,
We'd have a whole other set of
the
problems.
ratepayer
Oh
would
my
pay for
God.
that.
Well, we're going to go to commercial because
Excuse me.
we've got a 1-minute commercial coming up. And then when we come back, let's touch on this a little bit more. And then I want to talk a little bit about some of the other issues that are facing Hawaii. One, homelessness and refugees.
And I'd like to touch on solar and what's going on with the change from
Okay, yeah.
the
let's touch
feed-in
on-
tariff
Okay.
that's about to occur as well.
That's right. Let's talk about that too.
All right.
I'm Chris Lethem. This is The Economy and You, and we'll be right back. Aloha.
Here's the deal. I'm Jay
What do we got?
Fidel. I'm the host of Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, which is the Energy Policy Forum's program on Wednesday. That's how we call Wednesday Energy Wednesday. We call it Energy Wednesday every Wednesday. Are you surprised? Okay, and we get guys like Jim Alberts here from Hawaiian Electric who can tell us what's really going on in energy. We want to be informed. It's so important. It's the most important initiative in our state. Clean energy is major, okay? And that's why we cover it on this show. That's the deal. What do you think, Sharon?
I think that's great. That's why we're here every Wednesday from 4 to 5, and we hope you all join us so we can hear people like Jim coming on our show and co-host Ray Starley from Hawaii Energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here today. You've seen this. You heard what she said. What do you think?
I think it's a tremendous opportunity for people to come together and talk about the issues. oftentimes there isn't a good forum to bring these key issues out into the public, and this is a tremendous way to go about it. And the activity of this show is essential to keep talking about energy, because as you said, it's such an essential part of our lives that we need to pay attention to it, and we need to think about the future.
Okay, Ray, your turn.
Well, this is a special time in the history of Hawaii where we're making some pretty radical changes in the way we use energy and generate energy. And this show is the one place you can count on coming to every Wednesday and hearing something about the latest issues that are on the table, being discussed, that will affect us all going forward. So come join us, and if you have some ideas you want to share with us about energy, give us a call and let us know. We'll put you up here and let you talk for an hour. So come see us.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks, Jim. It's great to be, from ThinkTech's point of view, it's great to have this show. We love the show. It's our most important show. So come around and listen to us 4 to 5 on Wednesday. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Chris Lethem. This is The Economy and You. Today's guest is Jeff Davis, the one, the only, the famous radio host and the solar guy.
Thank you, Chris.
And I really enjoy talking with you, Jeff, because you just seem to have a breadth of knowledge on a lot of different areas that impact us here in Hawaii.
It's an education that I've had my radio show for 6 years, and that's been the theme. Get an education.
That's right.
That's what we need.
That's right.
And of course, you've been a guest on my show so much. I had so much respect for what you were doing for children's rights
Yes.
over the years.
Yes.
And I support that to no end. Thanks for having me again.
Well, thanks. So let's go back and touch a little bit on the LNG issue, which we were discussing when we had to take a commercial break.
We spoke, I mentioned the fact that we were releasing so much pure methane in the
That's right,
atmosphere.
okay.
We talked about the fact that if you were to take LNG, would you take fracked LNG or would it be unfracked? That would be very political, either whichever way you went.
Okay.
And now we're going to ship it. And we talked about the Jones Act not being amenable to building an affordable LNG tanker.
Well, that continues to be a thorn in our side here in Hawaii.
Big time. And so then, once you get it here, you have to regasify it. It comes frozen. And the governor said, we don't want to go there because the transitional fuel will turn into our new monkey on our back. We'll supply, we'll go off of oil and we'll end up on natural gas. And if we have to build this big infrastructure to accept it, we won't be able to just let it go when battery storage becomes inexpensive,
Right.
when PVs become, as they are already, okay?
Well, this is the thing that, we need to talk about the smart grid. When we talk about the smart grid, we talk about putting devices in our homes that let us know when we, and I don't know I know for the utilities, the rates change in terms of how much you're charged per kilowatt hour depending on the time of day,
There's that.
right? So if we wanted to reduce our cost in our home, if we have solar power, but if we live in a condo, of course, that's not always an option for us. So the question is, can we have batteries where we use the batteries during the day, during peak time when it's, and then re-energize those batteries at night when it's cheaper?
Great. And, as part of my reward for having a media outlet, I was there when the solar airplane landed from Nanjing after a 4-day and night trip by solar power alone from there to Hawaii. And when this fellow got out of the airplane, he was just on cloud nine, no pun intended, okay? He come out, you know what the message was, Chris? The message wasn't, oh, look how great solar is. The message wasn't, look what batteries have been able to accomplish. The message was, we wanted to accomplish something. We had the will to do it. We were told by the aviation industry years ago that it was impossible to do what we wanted to do, but where there's a will, there's a way. The message is, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
And with that in mind, if we start bringing in a infrastructure for natural gas, that just doesn't give us the urgency and the willpower to have a will. There's a way.
Well, that ameliorates the initial problem with the high cost of fuel. But of course, oil prices are low right now, so there may be a short-term disincentive until that goes back up again.
Oh, okay, so what do you need? You need either a port, which would cost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, not billions, or you need a boat, a gasification boat, et cetera, et cetera. So unless the natural gas folks could show up, take all responsibility for the infrastructure, don't put it onto the ratepayer, and say, look, we're going to use this natural gas as long as we need it. You guys won't have to pay for anything. And any day we don't like it, we've got renewables coming on board. We'll just pull up the anchor of the gasification tanker. It's not going to happen like that. There's going to be vast amounts.
Say it isn't so, Jeff.
Vast amounts of money. Imagine that.
No.
And there'll be
Yeah.
hell to pay the interest on it, and that'll be coming from the ratepayers.
Yeah, of course. The ratepayers ultimately have to carry the burden.
Well, that's what I like about the vision of so many people in Hawaii, including the governor, has said 100% renewable, and we're not going to be waylaid by natural gas or other fossil fuels. Let us put our eye on the mark, and where there's a will, there's a way. I truly believe that.
Okay, can we set a mandate? We've set a mandate for mid-century to be at
Yeah.
100%.
Correct.
Renewable energy. Okay. So what are we doing to achieve that mandate? Getting off of the NextEra HECO issue. Let's say NextEra doesn't happen. And let's say HECO stays in
It
play.
doesn't look like it is. We had 28 interveners all said no, including the unions and the governor and all the tree huggers. You
So
name it.
then what do we do?
Well, I mean, obviously you're asking the wrong guy. I wasn't elected to be the governor. Was Mr. Ige out there? Because here's what the people who are in power did recently. They all got down at the Capitol, and on every county, Kauai's already done it, publicly owned utility.
Yes.
All right. Now we have Big Island bringing it up long ago. We have Maui County bringing it up long ago. And now finally we had a big get together with the politicians that care about this. Your Chris Lees, your Cynthia Thielens, your et ceteras, down there saying we need to look at being the owners of our own co-op, now of our own electric company. Now that's scary, yeah, because how long has it been that government divest themselves into the private sector? Because government just doesn't seem to get it right.
We do have a little bit of a challenge.
But it's working in a lot of places on the mainland. It's worked on Kauai, so to speak, where there's not a profit-driven for the shareholder mentality. That's a fiduciary responsibility these people at HECO have. That's a legal responsibility.
That's right.
So we could take that out of the fiduciary side of it, give it to the people. That's what people are looking at right now.
But we have a challenge right now because we have this issue with solar power. Now, the HECO is asking that a part of the power that you generate be given back to them. I'm not exactly sure how that all transpires, but if you have solar panels on your house, you have to either provide them with a certain amount of electricity or you have to pay them some base rate.
Let me help you. This is my personal opinion.
Okay.
Personally speaking, they're about to change, and it could be in the paper tomorrow because unfortunately Hawaiian Electric doesn't even keep my industry, which used to be the biggest construction industry until they cut that in half. They don't keep us informed. But at some point, and whether it's a week or a month, there's no doubt, there will be a change. When the Public Utilities Commission and Hawaiian Electric and all the interveners will agree on how that change is going to occur. Currently, net metering, best deal on the planet. Most places in the world, I know some that if you make a kilowatt in the daytime, they'll give you a half back. They're going to keep the other half. You get a half back at night. Okay, here, the net metering, you got it all back. And of course, that unbalanced it so much, and everybody screamed, only the rich are now getting away with it, and we're carrying the grid ourselves.
Right.
And so it's Hawaiian Electric, instead of doing it properly from the start, all of a sudden came up with safety and reliability and all kinds of reasons to stop the press on our industry.
Now, was that implemented based on statute or policy?
That was implemented based on safety and reliability, which they got to call the shot as the only umpire in town. It was their
Okay.
game.
But they
Nobody dared stand up.
Okay.
They came out with a 75% safety and reliability in a circuit. Now it's at 250. So 2 years ago, they said, stop everything. Don't do anything till we tell you. We'll get right back to you.
Okay.
Months went by before they got back to anybody. And they went 75% of your circuit. Now, are they that inept? I don't believe it. Because now they're at 250 acceptable. But back then it was 75% of a circuit. So they stopped it now.
Okay.
Now that this thing is about to switch over. So let's say that it turns out that Hawaiian Electric and the PUC come to their agreement, and it's going to be like this. If you have 10 panels, put 12, because HECO gets 2 of them. If you have 20, put 24. You see that? A 20% charge on what you don't consume during the day.
What you don't consume.
If you're a
during the
business or
daytime.
if you're home
Okay,
all day
that's
long, you
interesting.
go to bed at sunset, you're
Right.
going to be doing well because you're going to get to use everything dollar for dollar.
Well, you know, Jeff, one of the things that's happening now is we're also developing solar panels that will actually act as windows in your building.
Yeah, that's coming, obviously.
You know, now that's going to have a huge impact on the amount of
Oh, come on.
energy
There's going to
generated,
be
isn't it?
there's going to be paint that does the same thing for condos. You'll be able to paint the condo. Okay, you'll be able to put all. We already have the windows, but they're expensive, right? The whole thing balances like that. For batteries,
Well, new technology is always expensive initially.
like the batteries.
Right.
So here's my crystal ball: is the solar panels themselves pretty much hit bottom because you can't bring down the price on transportation and manufacture and humans. Okay, well the silicon dropped and it dropped down to these lows.
Right.
As time goes by, yes, they will find a way to make it more efficient for the same price, perhaps. Right now, if you want high efficiency, you pay a premium. And unless you have a very small roof space, you'd be a fool to pay a premium to generate, in the end, with the same electricity as the lesser efficient panel.
Right.
All right. So time will go on, the efficiencies will go forward.
Sure.
The price will be about the same, which right now is the best in the world in Hawaii because of our electrical costs. You get a return investment of 3 years.
Yes. Well, because our cost of our electricity is so expensive
That's part of
compared to
it,
anybody
and our
else.
generous tax credits.
Okay.
The federal credit, 30%, is due to expire at the end of next year.
Is that right? Well, that's important for
Sunsets.
people to know.
I think so.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah,
very
yeah,
important. Okay, so the batteries now, I've put battery systems in, my
Okay.
electrician.
All right.
And if you're off grid, that's what people have done for 50 years. I mean, you're off grid, or if you happen to be very, very wealthy, such as Mr. Rogers from Blue Planet, Hank's got this big, bad battery system going on, made the front page of the paper with it. But we're talking about the marketplace.
But that's a large upfront capital investment.
Big,
Most
big,
people
big,
can't
at the
afford
current
it.
price.
Right.
So we're talking about the marketplace. What can people afford? What's going to change the direction? PV changed the direction with net metering. Now the storage portion of it, all right?
Okay.
The batteries are being developed and developed for all the right reasons. Energy storage will be the next computer, cell phone, revolutionize the world. And what's going to need to happen is, just like I said, the calculator, which used to cost so much, is now being given away free.
Well, yes.
We need to get these batteries. It's going to be, from my point of view, my crystal ball, 2 to 3 years. We'll be able to buy safe, long-lasting, deep cycle batteries for very little money. At that point, you will put them in your garage or somewhere, and you will call HEI and say, "I told you so. Come take your meter. The meter will be
And
gone.
then you fire your
You have a
utility.
propane generator if it rains for 40 days and 40 nights.
Okay, and then you've got power as you need it, when you need it.
The batteries will be at a level.
Okay.
But I mean,
interesting.
for right now, you should be buying your solar panels, taking advantage of the credits that are there.
Yes.
Because again, the federal 30% expires.
Now, you're the solar guy, so you have a vested interest in that paradigm, right?
Actually, it's just math. I mean, come on. I'm also the guy watching climate change and
Yes.
Military and political instability.
And, you know,
killing.
Now, I know not everybody is an Obama fan, but one of the things that he did talk about recently is the rate of climate change is moving even faster than what scientists had predicted 10, 15 years ago.
I'm telling you, I've been doing show after show on that for year after year, and I've had some of the
Yes.
world's leading scientists calling in from Earth Systems Laboratory, NASA. And they always said this, Chris. I mean, the atmosphere guys, the ice flow guys, the ocean guys,
right.
they always had on best case scenario, it might do this. On the worst case scenario, it might do that.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to tell y'all, it's coming in on the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario.
Over and over again. Sea level rise, carbon, and then, of course, weather patterns changing.
So we're going to go to another commercial break. When we come back, this has been a really great discussion, and I want to talk about some of the other issues that I wanted to discuss with you while we still have time.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Aloha.
I'm Chris Lethem. This is the Economy and You. Thank you for watching, and we'll be right back.
Hi, my name
This
is
is the
Cindy
Economy and
Matsuki,
You.
and I
Yeah.
host the show High Growth with HTDC on ThinkTech Hawaii. This is the show where we talk about all things tech, innovation, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing, because there's so many things going on in Hawaii and more people should know about them. So this is the program that you can come and find out about all the things happening in Hawaii. And this show also airs on Olelo 54 along with ThinkTech Hawaii. And it broadcasts live every other Tuesday at 3 p.m. So don't forget, check out the show Tuesday, 3 p.m. every other week. High Growth with
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island in the ER position. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the ThinkTech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris Lethem. This is The Economy and You. Today's guest is Jeff Davis, and I wanted to kind of touch on some of the other important issues happening in our local economy and in the world. One of them has to do with homelessness, but also the refugee problem that we're seeing across Europe today. Refugees are flying across the borders from West Africa, North Africa, and Syria. And, now they're asking the United States to step up and do their part. Now what do we do about this?
Well, I tell you, first of all, the cause of it might be nice to understand. And it's a whole nother show, but it's basically destabilized government, okay? Destabilization due to either actual war and bloodshed and torture or not enough food or water.
Well, you have dictators like
Pain and
Assad
suffering.
from Syria who was just pounding his own people.
Yeah.
And the people got fed up and they fought back.
Okay, so fine. And there's another one, climate change. Anytime that you're
That's
gonna,
right.
I mean, Katrina was the perfect example of America's climate change moment when we lost millions of people out of that area, the diaspora out of New Orleans. Now you look at the same thing happening in many places as sea will rise, as we get these bigger tornadoes and natural disasters
And
that are
hurricanes
coming.
are
Well, that's due to
amazing. Yeah.
water temperature, which is
Yes.
going up. So one way or another, what we're seeing in our future due to climate change and or the fact that people never seem to get enough money, then they're willing to start wars to get more of it. We've got refugees. And I'm here with the sad news to say it right on your program. You're going to see the suicide bombings coming right behind it. You heard it here first on ThinkTech. And right now, it's going to take a suicide bomber in Cyprus, a suicide bomber in Budapest. You go to these countries that are already struggling under the weight of refugees, you blow up a crowded marketplace, suddenly it's the refugees' fault. And this is the tried and true technique: destabilize a government, come in, do bring terrorism into the act.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's one mafia against the existing mafia, perhaps,
Yes, wow.
wanting to take power. It's a power struggle.
Well, it is sort of the nature of our existence, isn't it? Historically, I mean, we've always had these uprisings. But this one seems to be severely problematic in North Africa.
Well, Donald
because
Trump-
you've got ISIS, you've got all these fractional militant groups that are sort of friends at some point, enemies at the other, frenemies. It's getting so complicated. And you've got Iraq, you've got doing battle with ISIS. ISIS is trying to gain a foothold in other parts of the world. And of course, nobody who is in the right mind is going to want to have their family in the middle of all that nonsense. So naturally, you're going to want to flow out.
Yeah, and it's ironic, most people who they don't pay attention, did they know that the average migrant's really well off? These guys who are refugees and migrants, they have money. You can't go for free. It costs thousands and thousands of dollars to get on that path of possible torture, rape, and extortion and death to get to where you want to go. These people actually have money, and bringing it back to how many factions, how many warlords, how many dictators. There's an old saying, Chris, it's better the devil you know. And in your question is, should America be stepping in to bring more? We're bringing 1,500 a year when they've got hundreds of
But
thousands.
Germany has allocated a space for 500,000 refugees. Isn't that about
And
right?
by the way, they mentioned they could do that for 10 years. They have room for that for 10 years, year after year. Okay?
Well, that's a lot of refugees.
Well, again, we're a bigger country than Germany.
So now can we absorb
We
those
can,
kinds of
obviously.
numbers? I mean, we've absorbed 10 million, 12 million people from Mexico.
Well, from Mexico, Guatemala, Panama, El Salvador.
Right.
I mean, it's
Now we're going to
it's
absorb
not
more,
Mexico.
and we're still absorbing more people from off of our southern borders.
Again, destabilization of one form or another. And if if it's the top 2% sucking even more of the 98% out of there and leaving everybody to fight over the crumbs, so they start fighting harder, like in the gangs in El Salvador City, San Salvador. Oh, the gang warfare is huge. I mean, there's just nothing to go around, so they fight over scraps, the murder rates, the abuse, whether it's that or whether it's a climate event. What you see happening in Europe right now, you can guarantee you will see that happening from southern borders at some point into America. What you see there is a great lesson to be learned for the future of America. I mean, you mentioned our ebb and flow of migrants from Mexico and Central America, South America.
Right. Now, are we
The
gonna
idea
see-
of bringing in these Syrians, that's a drop in a bucket relative to what we've got from our Latino neighbors.
That's right, that's right.
It's a drop in the bucket.
And we have great consternation over that now. There is just great consternation.
How do
Of
you
course,
how do you think Hungary and the rest of these folks, Greece, feel when they've got tens of thousands of these people showing up
Yes.
weekly, and they're not the ones who quote unquote went after the weapons of mass destruction in the middle of Iraq? And I mentioned the T word, Trump. He's the guy that's on TV getting so much press saying, I told him back in 2000 and so 2004 what it was, that if they went in and took out Saddam, they would destabilize the region and that blah blah blah. Well, that's exactly the textbook what has occurred.
Yes.
The region has been destabilized, and a lot of people could say that it's because basically America wanted to get in there and do what they do, make their money dropping bombs,
Yes.
make their money rebuilding schools and water treatment plants / Halliburton. There's good money in war, okay?
Well, yeah, a lot of people do make money off war, but there's also the issue too of the amount of just mayhem. I mean, there's been 250,000 people killed in the last few years, just in the North African region. I mean, the loss of life in that area has just been incredible. And now then we've got to figure out what we're going to do with all the people that are trying to escape from all that pain and suffering. Are we going to step up? Should we step up?
Guaranteed we're going to, because our European allies are not going to put up with cleaning up the mess of our war. Although many of them also went into it. It was at the U.S.'s urging and partnership, your Britons, your France, et cetera. But now all of a sudden there's the price is to be paid.
Yes.
They're paying the price. We're taking in $1,500 a year.
I don't think that's going to hold. We're going to
it
start
shouldn't
having to
hold.
we're going to have to bring in, I think, probably hundreds of thousands of people
Yes,
from these areas.
and that's not a bad thing, by the way. Quote unquote, Americans don't want to do the job that the quote unquote Mexicans are doing.
Well, there are certain people who are running for office right now that are very isolationist in their approach. It's not their problem, let them deal with it.
Yeah, well. The bottom line, what you're seeing right now, get used to it. It's going to
Yeah.
be the future. You're going to see more and more of it, whether
Well,
it's from climate change or
Now,
destabilization.
we've got a tweet from Mark Ward. He says, I cannot understand not wanting to open the doors, but let's stop pretending that we're a Christian nation.
Common sense, Mark, very common sense. It's not like we aren't the most affluent country in the world. We've got a lot of open space. We've got unemployment supposedly at 5.1%. There's no reason we shouldn't be leading by example instead of going over there, messing it all up, and then letting our allies in Europe shoulder the burden beyond all expectation. And you want to shoulder the burden, you mark my words, and I hate to say it, there's going to be some suicide bombings that follow these guys right along, just to throw more mayhem into the mix.
Well, let's talk about our own local mayhem just for a minute before we've got a few
Homelessness
minutes
in
left.
Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a problem here. We've got an unfunded mandate from the federal government to take care of Micronesians, which we have had this huge influx of people from Micronesia, as well as we get people from the mainland, and we have our own people here locally who just can't pay their bills and are now find themselves homeless. Where do we go with these folks? One of the things that I have thought about, giving this great consideration, is the idea of using our known natural resources, or what we have available, to build homes for families in temporary structures. Now, these are interim structures until we can build more permanent homes for these folks. But I just thought that some of the materials that we have here, such as bamboo, we could utilize that to build family structures.
And of course, they're right now, I've had all these architects on my shows, and what they're doing is taking the containers, shipping containers,
Right.
which are cheap.
cheap. But they want
Because we're
these,
shipping everything
Yes.
in and we're not shipping anything out.
but they want to make these shipping containers, if we convert them, meet every single
Yeah, there's issues.
regulation.
They're gonna do that with your bamboo, I'm sorry to tell you.
Well, that's one of the pieces of legislation we want to talk about.
Well,
is
how about
maybe
this?
giving a little
Regardless of
break
the
there.
solutions,
Yes.
unless there is a political will to solve it, it's
Yes.
not gonna happen. So, I mean.
Is there a political will to solve
No,
it?
I mean, I moved in, when I was running for governor as a libertarian, I moved into Kaka'ako Park, bought a tent, put my tent in there on the corner, left it there for weeks, spent several nights understanding the problem, and here's what the problem was. With the pregnant woman next door and the baby over there was families. And these families did not want to go to a shelter because the shelter's dangerous for children. It's full of bed bugs, but it's also 80% white male.
Yeah.
You
Nobody
don't-
likes
Who
getting
wants to
bit
go
by
there?
that.
You know,
Yeah.
and so you rather take your chances on the street. So instead of addressing that problem, admitting that children were the face of homelessness, it was always, no politician wanted to put their head on a political block to say, oh, let's give them some water and a toilet. You know, because that would be the human thing to do,
Well-
a compassionate thing to do. They're children, they're innocent.
But then you're encouraging the problem.
That's what they're gonna say.
Isn't
So
that
let's,
what- isn't
so
that what
let's
they would
not
say?
give them a toilet and water, shall we?
And then we have
Choose
to go
one.
in and then clean it up because now we have an environmental
Then-
nightmare.
And then we're gonna have a total generation of these homeless kids who turn into criminal and homelessness and have their own single families and end up living on the street as well.
Mm-hmm.
They have no dignity, no self-respect as children. Right now, they're sweeping Kaka'ako today,
Yes.
I think it is. Where are they supposed to be going? The bottom line, Chris, when I went down there and I stayed in a tent and I called a press conference and very few people showed up, especially the major media did not.
Mm-hmm.
And the conference was to say, children are the face of homelessness, not the drunken bum that you keep showing on the front page pushing a shopping cart. These kids are the face of homelessness.
Yeah.
Nobody would show up. I opened up the celebrity sleepover tent, and I had some really good people come sleep in that tent to show try to bring awareness of it. I went into several debates and said very simply, we must have shelters for families only. We must have shelters for families only. Here it is, 16 months later.
What have they discovered?
That we must have shelters for families over 16 months later. All right,
It
you've
just
got to
seems
get them off the
amazing.
street, but they're
Yes.
not going to go into the kind, and you can't just keep sweeping them around. Political will, and I think the short answer is nobody wants to be the one who makes the hard decisions and says we've got to sustain them somewhere.
Right.
And they keep coming up with these homogene ideas to put them all together. You're not going to find families wanting to move in with the single white adult male. You've got too
Yes.
many pedophiles, drug
Yeah, you
addicts,
just don't
brain
know.
damage.
Even if they weren't, you don't know. And if you're a father, the last thing you want to do is put your children in harm's way.
I'm guaranteed.
You
I mean,
don't- you
that's
don't
the
wanna
biggest
do that.
collection of unfortunate people
Yes.
anywhere, these shelters, and a lot of them are there because they're mentally ill. And bless your hearts, I hope they can get the help, and I hope the shelters have the resources to help them.
Yeah.
But you have to understand why nobody would want to take their family and their children there.
Well, of course not.
Not to mention, they're gonna make you leave grandma and uncle on the street corner, because they won't allow you to bring your
That's
blah,
right.
blah.
That's right. Now, I want to touch a little bit. If I want people to be able to find your show. We've got about a minute left. Tell people how they can listen to your show.
And my show, Chris, thank you, is 4 to 5 p.m. Fridays on
Okay.
1080 a.m. Obviously, it streams.
Uh-huh.
People can get a hold of me, my phone number?
Sure.
554-7200. If you've got a group, if you have a nonprofit, if you have an issue, you can bring it on. I'd be happy to put you on the show. It's basically an educational format.
Yes. Now, would we want to encourage Iran and China to take some of these refugees as well?
You know, it's interesting to note that, first of all, we're in Hawaii and we're safe because of the ocean.
Yes.
Okay? Iran, good luck. Saudi Arabia hasn't taken any.
Hasn't taken any?
That's the point.
Wow. Well,
They haven't taken any.
That's fascinating.
By the way,
to know.
taking in these Syrian refugees is not a bad thing.
Yes.
I don't care what Rush Limbaugh might come up with to say it's a
Uh-huh.
bad thing. This country's built on immigrants, and these people have educations. They want to go to school. They want to get their jobs. They want to
And
work.
they want to live the American dream.
They want to not live in hell.
That's right. Amen. Thanks for being on the show,
All right,
Jeff.
Chris. Thanks for having me.
I'm
Anytime.
Chris Lethem. This is The Economy and You, and we'll see you next week. Aloha.